Well, good morning. This is Jonathan, the Games Master's Guide, and I am here to help you make your games more excellent. Today we're going to talk about a term that popped into my head literally this morning, and it has lit a fire inside my brain, so I'm going to share it with you. And when we go over that term, it's going to perhaps change the way you express yourself in your games, quite literally. Before that, make sure you like, subscribe, hit all the buttons like my little note down here suggests. We'd love to have you as a member here on Twitch. And if you subscribe to the Twitch channel, you don't have to watch commercials anymore. One of the benefits of membership is that I've eliminated the commercials for those of you that subscribe. Not so fortunate for those of you on YouTube. That's just the mechanic of YouTube. But nonetheless, I really appreciate if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel over at NycosRPG as well, because that's where the Alexandrian library of my videos is. There are something like 800 videos there. I look back and I go, how did I get that many made? But when you do this stuff 5 days a week, it does catch up pretty quick. And, anybody else's job is an occupation, but mine is a lifestyle. So there you go. So today the word is expression. And I don't know why that word hit me today. When I woke up, I was doing my morning ablutions, as you would say, and you just got to thinking about that term. And it has so many deep meanings beyond the obvious. I mean, to say that something is an expression is a shorthand for saying this is a generally accepted colloquial phrase that carries this specific meaning. And so it expresses that condition, emotion, state, or whatever. So when we talk about expressing ourselves as game masters, expressing ourselves as individuals, to that matter, and especially if you're talking about a player, they certainly express themselves. They are literally putting a pressure on what they are and exerting it, expressing. X means to push out. Well, X means to get rid of, and press means to by pushing. So the idea is that when you are using an expression, you are putting out there words that carry a certain meaning. And when players express themselves, they are making themselves heard, making you as the storyteller aware of them. And pardon me, this has led me to a realization that when people talk about the right of free expression, what they're really saying is I can say or present what I am to the world without any limitations. And I find that a fascinating phrase simply because the idea of expression of self or expression of an opinion is in many cases looked down upon in the world today. It's if you want to keep peace, you don't express yourself. And I don't know that that's true, because it's a matter of what you're expressing. And today we're going to be talking about particular expression processes that are in role-play games and how each one of them works and how they are nuanced together. But I don't want to spend too much time spinning on the very thought about it. I want to get right into it. So here we go. The first thing that a player expresses is their intention. They tell you by giving you the name of their character, the name of their species, and the name of their class if you utilize classes. They tell you a bit about the person behind the numbers. And I think this is really kind of a fascinating mechanism that we as human beings have. I do have to step away for just a second, so we'll be right back. Hang on just a second. Alrighty, I'm back. Just wanted to take care of something that I need to take care of without being rude. So I've been fighting a head cold for the better part of the week, so there you have it. So the idea of expressing themselves through their character is to give a presentation, an expression, an outward presentation of who they are within the framework of the game. And in any game that you play whatsoever, you do sort of take on a separate persona, maybe not one that's visibly different from who you are, or doesn't need to be described in that fashion. But, even if you choose to be the banker in the game of Monopoly, or you become the shuffle and dealer for card games, that role changes throughout the game, and you express yourself in those terms. So the idea, therefore, that the persona is being expressed is showing that the player is now interpreting the numbers and identifying them as an individual. I find that really kind of fascinating, because that really is what humanity does to assess its environment. It looks at the conditions around it, and then determines which of those conditions are impactful, and then defines the world within those parameters. And so the expression of a character by the numbers on the page, that's an interpretation, right? That's a perception. Other players look at their numbers as merely a placeholder for what they will become in the long term, having developed the meta game concept, and therefore the numbers on the page only represent what they are now. But that expression, in converting the numbers into visualizations, is only a tiny piece of the expression that we have. And I want you as a game master to be able to express your situation to the players in a way that lets them do the opposite conversion, should they want to do so, because some people are more numerically minded than they are story minded. And one of the things that's been really effective for me over the 50 years that I've been GMing is that when I give a description to a place, I generally also give the conditions that the location, the environment, the very climate of the location presents, so that the players have a better, deeper understanding of what that is, and are able to use that expression to build out what they want to do in any given scene. So, for example, if they are involved in a conflict, I might give them the information that obviously we have already been described as being in a jungle climate with very, very hot, very humid, very moist. Rain is currently falling at a moderate rate, and the sound of the rainfall is a backdrop of fundamental white noise against the much more localized tropical noises that you hear. By tropical noises, I'm referring to the hoots and calls of several types of quadrupeds, as well as the screams and flutterings of birds in the trees nearby. The sky is a dull gray, of course, with the rain coming down, but it's a backdrop against the lush green of the canopy, which covers the majority of the sky. Only in a few narrow areas does the rain actually descend all the way from the skies directly to the ground. And in those places, you can very clearly see the shafts of water splashing to the ground all the way. But there are also a considerable number of trees of the canopy that are deflecting that rain and causing it to run in rivers down the stalks and trunks of the various trees in the area. Therefore, the ground itself is relatively muddy and murky, and it's a challenge to navigate evenly, even in the best of conditions, and it's made worse by the ground being so uneven here on this jungle path. So, to your front, where you've been traveling, the pathway seems to almost vanish in the darkness ahead, and the ground glistens with that excessive rainfall that's now covering the ground ahead of you. And the path behind, you can look back and see the glistening reflections of the standing water in the puddles and ruts that you've already navigated to get to this point. Suddenly there's the sound of something crashing through the underbrush, apparently breaking stalks and bending the trunks of trees as it's moving towards you. Of course, then the question would be how you are going to respond. And that request for a response is itself an expression, because now I'm taking the pressure that was on me in terms of that description, and I'm pushing it out on the players to get a response from them from that condition. And ironically, in one of the magic systems of NycosRPG, there's this concept of two different systems under pressure and the push me pull you effect of them, and how the interaction between the two pressure systems changes the dynamics of how, for example, magic items work. And this gives a flavor to the magics, and it gives a flavor to the session. And my description gave a flavor to this interaction, because right now I'm imagining that you're still got rainfall dropping on your forehead from the canopy above you. This idea of expression leads to impression, and impression is what we do with the information when we get it. As you are listening to the description I gave of the jungle that we're currently in, I gave you a little bit of work with in terms of light and darkness, moisture and dryness. There's a lot of different variables to work with, but you have to then be impressed by that definition to the point where you can make sound decisions about what you're going to do. Prepare for the attack, perhaps ask a question about where the sound is coming from. Is it left, right, forward, whatever? There are plenty of places in my expression that leave places for you to ask additional information and keep the pressure on me before we even move on to the next act. But the point here is that the process of impression and expression is in essence the dialogue that occurs between the game master and the player. In addition, I want to talk about expression in a slightly different way too, and that is a player, by the very words they use, give additional clues that you as a game master can trigger on and utilize to your benefit to drive the story forward. For example, if you've described this jungle scene and a person becomes agitated because they realize they're one of the smaller species, and they're concerned with getting trampled or whatever, you can certainly play into that. When they ask questions, you'll be able to convey from what they have to say. You're going to infer, and you're going to basically be impressed by what they say. And I guess that's the best way to say it, is that the idea of inference is by necessity the active impressing process. So you're actually helping to drive that information to yourself so that you can make the right decision. And the game master who's on his game is going to hear your concern and either amplify to make it more exciting or downplay it to make it more accommodating, depending on what his inclination would be. Again, apologize for the head cold. The real element here is that you as a player are doing a combination between inferring what needs to happen next and expressing your opinions on it. Just a moment. I'll be right back. Alrighty, I'm back. So, I don't have to announce that, do I? You see on the screen that my face is back. So why do I have to shout that out? All right, this impression, expression, inference, and expression cycle goes both ways. Of course, when the players provide you with information about what they're doing within the scene, what resources they're expelling, what outcome they're expecting, you're able to therefore design the story to meet those head on. And really, if we think about it, the entire game session itself is an expression, because we are expressing this new fictional world and its reality onto the world, the landscape of our lives. And we can even sometimes cross over that barrier using these mechanics that I'm talking about. So if you're frustrated with life and you've got a challenge with an individual that's at the table, it's gonna manifest. It's going to be made visible. It's going to be expressed in one way or another. And as a game master, your obligation to the players is to make such dynamics the minimum they can be, so that the game is not influenced by the real world. It still happens from time to time. So here's my recommendation. When you're talking about a situation where your players are having a dynamics issue that is overflowing onto the game, it's best to go ahead and address it. And there you go. Express the dissatisfaction with that thing. Now, certain game masters get a charge when their players are at each other's throats, and I suppose that's okay for them. But with with 50 years behind me, I can tell you that none of that ever comes out to a positive. If there's a dynamical disconnect between your players, you're going to have problems with your campaign in the long term, and a lot of people will simply walk away from it, and you won't even know why, because people don't want to be confrontational if they don't have to in many cases. And so realizing, therefore, that, I just noticed I've got a great example of impression expression right here on my screen. I didn't even mean to do that, but look at the where are they at? I got my fingers backwards. There you go. Oh, God, gonna figure this out eventually. Oh, now it's it. Now, okay, there. The orange and black. As the one expresses, the other moves out of the way, and it's a pretty smooth transition. I think this is one of the things that I really want to talk about, and I hadn't known how to say it, so I'm just going to say it. One of the biggest challenges to role-play games in the modern era is the fact that our media and social media have made it acceptable to talk over one another. And it is most difficult for a storyteller when multiplayers are the ones that are engaging, because you really can't adjudicate which one's in the right and which one's in the wrong. So, certain groups I've been with, we invoked a talking stick. In other cases, we made sure that we had a sand timer so nobody got to speak for more than so many seconds before the next person got to put in their input. But we have to develop the decency and propriety of uniform chronological expression rather than running over each other, because it doesn't serve us well to talk over one another, because nobody is being heard, and the only thing that's being translated or transferred or impressed upon others is your dissatisfaction with the setting or the situation. And that's really, without detail, unproductive. So the idea here, therefore, is to state that the right of free expression in a game session is absolute, with the caveat that you should wait your turn or take specific matters and define them by a chronological period where you say what you got to say and then let someone else respond. Because it's that, as you see from my orange and black lines that are moving up and down here, it's the smooth transition of power, as the saying goes. And not that anything in our world, politics right now, is dealing with a smooth transition of power, but constantly we really need to let each side make its case, each side make its defense, and therefore convey the information seamlessly so that everybody can take that expression and put it into play in their own worldview at that moment. Alrighty, finally, the next piece of expression I want to talk about is expression of visuality. As a game master, I pride myself, perhaps it's hubris, but I pride myself on my ability to describe scene, setting, emotion, plot to the players along the way. And I depend on my players to provide feedback to let me know that we're actually seeing the same thing from time to time, because that's the most important aspect, is the conveyance of information. And the easiest way to handle this is the Socratic method. And by Socratic method, of course, I'm referring to the idea of answering a question with a question. If you don't know what's going on, if you're not aware of where the scene is, it's best to go ahead and ask the question. And even the way in which you ask a question can convey additional meanings. So, for example, when you describe the response, it can be, well, as I look here, I see blah, blah, but what is missing? And therefore, you get to convey a bit of where you are, who you are, whatever in the scene. And then the game master is then obliged to recouch the terminology from your standpoint, which is actually a really good visualization skill anyway to learn, and that is to see what the other sees and describe it to them, because it is they, not you, who have to make the decision anyway. So really it comes down to the, again, the word expression here is really referring to the outward procession of information and then waiting for a response. The final thing I want to talk about in terms of expression is the artistic side, and this is a place where, admittedly, I'm a tabula rasa. I am not able to create, as the saying goes, my stick figures rebelled and ran away. So there aren't even any stick figure drawings of things that have happened in the world of Nykos. So I depend on my players and you as the viewers to come up with the images of what the world of Nykos really looks like. But more importantly, for you as a game master to be able to express what your world looks like. And if you are an artistic person, I heartily recommend that you create art for others to take in so they can see your expression of the world. I do it all through narrative, which makes it perfect for online RPGs and theater of the mind play in general. So with that in mind, therefore, the gifts that you have should be the ones that you utilize to your maximum benefit. And I'm here to help in any way I can. So as we get ready to close out this video, I do have to ask some questions. Do you find visualization a necessity in role-play games, or would you buy a role-play game support property if it had no art, if it was simply lore, if it were, or more importantly, if it was simply mechanics? Would you be willing to look at those items and take ownership of them? I can give you an example. At NycosRPG.com right now, you can download the master book fast play rules, and it's like a 10 or 11 page document. But other than some artistic embellishments, there are no pictures. Would you find that useful? And if so, I'd ask you to please go ahead and go to NycosRPG.com, go to the Ready to Play section, and download for yourself the fast play rules as well as the persona profile so you can build out your first persona. Most of you may not know this, but I actually run games here on YouTube through the roleplay roulette system. I've run a couple of sessions, and I haven't continued to do so simply because, quite frankly, I haven't made the time. So watch for those in the future, and those will more than likely be at a new time other than the current schedule to keep them separate from each other. All right, so I'm rambling now, and we are at coming up on the commercial break for here on Twitch. So again, if you have not yet done so, subscribe to our Twitch channel so you can avoid the commercials. And if you are watching this on YouTube in about 10 minutes or so, subscribe so that you can help us keep this channel a daily channel. I'm Jonathan Albin. This has been Game Master's Guide, and I will see you in the next episode. We are on 2 times a day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific time and 11 p.m. Pacific time. We'll see you the next time, which will be later tonight.